Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. We're going to do an update on the situation with Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering and Hasbro's stock dropping off a cliff. Hasbro is down. A lot of analysts are blaming Wizards of the Coast for the Hasbro stock decline, citing specifically Magic the Gathering cards being overproduced, that they're destroying the brand's integrity. I could argue there are a number of things going on at Wizards that's destroying their brand's integrity, including all the weirdness with Dungeons and Dragons, getting overly political. But let's talk about this, because they are strongly refuting that they are destroying Magic the Gathering. So even Polygon's kind of calling it out here. We've got CNBC, again, purely numbers, saying that Hasbro is defending Magic the Gathering strategy, says there's no evidence that cards are being overprinted. You might want to ask some game shops that are stuck with a lot of cards as to whether or not they're being overprinted. You know, they don't talk about comic books like this. Do you notice that? There's like nobody talks about comic books being overprinted, but Magic the Gathering, they absolutely do. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, almost 283,000 subs. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It helps the channel out immensely. And we've been covering tabletop gaming and all the weirdness in tabletop gaming. And Wizards of the Coast is in kind of a rapid decline. This was another company that saw great gains during the pandemic. People were locked in their houses. They were playing more Magic the Gathering. They were playing more Dungeons and Dragons. They were buying board games from Hasbro. Now Hasbro is not doing very well. So their stock has taken a hit, and they're actually throwing Wizards of the Coast under the bus. There was an article out there a week or so ago that we covered where they said, hey, Magic is being overproduced, and this is a reason why your brand isn't worth anything. Now we have one DnD coming out, and they're talking about removing race completely from the game because it's offensive, and this is on top of so many other things that they are trying to appease the Twitter, Tumblr audience with, so they've got it coming from both sides here, right? Let's talk about this from CNBC. Hasbro defends Magic the Gathering strategy, says there's no evidence the cards are overprinted. Hasbro has refuted criticism it's overprinting card sets for Magic the Gathering. The head of its Wizards of the Coast unit said the company prints to meet demand. The company said supply chain issues led to complaints about card releases being too close together. And this is a result of supply chain issues tied to 2 releases in October. That actually is probably somewhat true. A lot of things on back order, a lot of things backlogged. We had issues getting another printing of our Shadowbinders graphic novels. It took longer to get them than it did the first time, obviously because of everything being backlogged. Hasbro is defending its strategy for the popular Magic the Gathering game. In a talk hosted by UBS on Thursday, the toy company refuted criticism that it's printing too many card sets for the soon-to-be billion-dollar brand. The comments come nearly a month after Bank of America downgraded Hasbro to underperform from buy, saying the company was killing its golden goose and could see a 34% decline in share price. Ouch! Due to mishandling of the Wizards of the Coast unit. Okay, so there has been talk for years, for at least 3 or 4 years, that Hasbro was looking to sell off Wizards of the Coast for a number of reasons. I had heard that the rumor was they were going to possibly sell D&D and Magic to a company like Tencent, where they would just make a bunch of crappy mobile games, out of the franchise. But I don't know. And I have to wonder if oh crap, this is not good, because we were hoping to sell this part of the company off and now we can't do it. Now, there was a call from one of their activist investors a couple of months ago to spin Wizards off, and Hasbro didn't do it. So I think at that point, Wizards was making too much money, but now they're a liability. Wizards is a liability, and I don't think it's going to get any better with one D&D. Jason Hawes, who wrote the Bank of America report, said players are getting increasingly turned off by a slew of new releases that flooded the market and decrease the secondary market values of cards. Again, you don't hear Bank of America downgrading Disney or Warner Brothers because there are too many shitty comic books out there. But man, you touch tabletop gaming and everybody freaks out. At the talk on Thursday, Cynthia Williams, president of WotC, said Hasbro doesn't have any indications of broad declines in interest in the game's products. There's no evidence that Magic is overprinted, she said. Hasbro did this with Star Wars too. At first, they denied that they had a problem selling Star Wars figures, Disney Star Wars figures, even though you could see them collecting dust on the shelves. In fact, there are still many, many Rey figures collecting dust at Ollie's bargain outlets all over the country. They're still there after 5 or 6 years. But they had to finally come out and say, yeah, it was Disney's fault. We thought that Disney Star Wars was going to be more marketable, and it wasn't. Williams said the company typically spreads out its tentpole releases of Magic the Gathering card sets in 2-month intervals. In October, she said supply chain issues resulted in 2 sets releasing at the same time. That might be true. That might be true. She said the cadence of releases will return to normal in 2023, with major sets being released every 2 months and micro sets sprinkled in between. In the game, which can be played in person and online, players use cards to cast spells, use artifacts, summon creatures, and play as Transformers. Yes, that's where Hasbro's at right now with Magic. This is coming from Polygon. Hasbro strongly refutes claims it's destroying Magic the Gathering. A fireside chat gave a detailed look at how the company plans to grow Magic and Dungeons & Dragons. Presentation, which is archived online, opened with a detailed look at Magic, the Magic player base. Then around 25 minutes in, the host and analyst from UBS got to the point. There's been this claim that you're printing too many cards. What is your one-sentence answer to that? Williams began by explaining that major releases are not produced on a limited basis. Instead, the company uses a print-to-demand model where Hasbro pushes more cards into the sales channel following its initial release when retailers demand more. And this is... Yeah, look, there was an increased demand for Magic cards, Pokemon cards, all these things during the pandemic. And that is kind of waning, and I think a lot of people were fair weather players. They got into it during the pandemic, again, being locked in your house, not having a job, or whatever your situation was. You're going to take up new hobbies to pass the time, and I think that's what happened. It kind of like the pandemic pet situation, which is really tragic. Have you heard about that, pandemic pets? A lot of people went out and got a cat or a dog or whatever during the pandemic because they were at home and they were lonely. And then as soon as they went back to work, they dumped the poor animal off at the shelter. Very sad. And that's they're dumping Watsy off at the shelter. But the real question is it a no-kill shelter, or is Watsy going to be euthanized? Who knows? Maybe Hasbro will just euthanize Watsy. Williams pressed back against another claim, this one coming most recently from vocal members of the Magic community, namely that falling prices on the secondary market are evidence that Hasbro is releasing too many sets of cards. It's not really Hasbro's problem what happens to the cards on the secondary market, though. We understand that some players focus on the collectible trading aspects of our product, and we are always thrilled to see players enjoying and valuing our products for years after their release. But we don't participate in the secondary market for Magic products, nor do we derive any revenue from that. So basically, collectors complaining that their stuff is not making money. Hasbro basically only gets paid the first time around. Williams and Cox also, remember Cox? Also spoke plainly about fans' response to the recently released Magic 30th Anniversary Edition. The announcement of the nearly $1,000 box set of 4 15-card booster packs angered many longtime players because it included reprints of incredibly rare cards, including the legendary Black Lotus. Williams said that Hasbro had heard that feedback loud and clear and responded in kind by releasing fewer of those sets into the market. Magic will be our first billion-dollar brand this year. We're growing that brand ahead of the industry and pushing the boundaries of where we can take the product. More often than not, we get that right, and sometimes we step back and listen to customer feedback. Die-hard fans of Magic should also expect more crossover with non-Magic IP like Lord of the Rings and Doctor Who, because that's what everybody wants, and Transformers and all this other stuff. My Little Pony, have they done that yet? The executive said that going forward, these kinds of collaborations will become the primary method of onboarding new players. Oh boy. What does that have to do with D&D? Williams said that many of the growth factors that have led to the success of Magic will be applied to D&D, especially when it comes to digital content. Magic's biggest area for growth, the executive said, is the digital space, the hybrid players who play Magic with both physical cards and online using Magic the Gathering Arena, spend 40% more than other Magic players. Therefore, the goal is to open up similar opportunities for players to spend money through the newly acquired digital toolset D&D Beyond. Dungeon Masters only make up 20% of the audience. Well, that would be the case because you've got one DM for how many players. But they're the largest share of our paying players today. Yes, because the DM is usually responsible for buying all the books, buying all the source books. And now Williams previously worked at Microsoft as general manager and VP of its gaming ecosystem commercial team. So, in-app purchases, everybody. For the rest of the players at the table, we believe digital will allow us to offer a lot more options to create a rewarding experience. You don't have to work too hard to read between the lines on this one. Hasbro is already getting customers used to downloading digital content through D&D Beyond with free material right now, like an advent calendar. I guess they're doing an advent calendar. Players should expect more microtransactions on D&D Beyond throughout 2023. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. So they're actively chasing off longtime fans, and they're going to bleed the new fans dry. This sounds like a winning strategy. I cannot wait to see where they are in 2 or 3 years, especially with recession. I can't wait to see it. I have to wonder if Hasbro, since they're the ones causing all the negative headlines, Wizards, if Hasbro won't unload them after all, because they're pretty much done with them now. I mean, Wizards helped Hasbro tremendously through the recession, but now there's a lot of controversy and negativity around the brand, and they might be a liability. It might be time to just sell them off to Tencent. I don't know. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.